Have you ever thought about business or leadership coaching for your leadership team and said that, that sounds good, but we're not there yet? This episode is for you. Most leaders hesitate for understandable reasons. No cost, the time involved, uncertainty, or the belief that they got to figure it out all on their own. So others worry that their teams won't fully engage, that coaching will create more talk and less traction, less action. So today, I'm going to address the common objections that we hear when someone is considering coaching. Leadership team coaching, one-on-one, one-on-two coaching, the services we provide. We call the coaching process the legacy journey here at Decide Your Legacy. So we're going to talk about each, what actually creates lasting change, why waiting can cost you more than you think, and why starting can give you the clarity, accountability, both you and your team that you need. Let's go ahead and jump right in. And before we jump in, I do want to share something that I did that was scary and brave. Not that I'm always brave. I'm definitely not. In fact, just knowing that I got to share something on the podcast does challenge me. So the reason I share something is because nothing's more valuable and important to your mental health than reaching out, taking risks, doing scary things. Nothing's more damaging than playing it safe. So here's the deal. I made a list in the morning of something I wanted to get done, and it was writing some letters to people that are encouraging. And so got the first one done. It's scary because it just feels awkward, but just like a real letter, like something they're going to get in the mail and say, wow, dude, and they're going to keep and refer to. Kind of a cool thing. So welcome to the Decide Your Legacy podcast. I'm your host, Adam Gragg. I'm a coach and family therapist, founder of Decide Your Legacy founded it in 2012, and we help leaders and their teams face the issues that they're avoiding. Face the stuff that they don't want to talk about and talk about it. Get below the surface to the real problems so they can take productive action, make progress that sticks, a long-term transformation. And from my point of view, and from a guest I had on the podcast before Thanksgiving, Ben's point of view, everybody's a leader. Everybody's a leader because you have influence. There's people looking to you and watching your behavior, and they're taking direction from you, whether you realize it or not. This is an exciting part of life that you can influence other people. And change is a process. So first, I'm going to go through these objections. There's actually 9 of them, and common ones that I hear. And I'm going to give you my thoughts on those specific objections. So one of the common ones is, Adam, you and your team, you're not experts in our industry, in manufacturing and engineering and architecture and construction, whatever, and there's so many different industries out there, so that is true. And they're basically saying that your advice and your feedback and information won't apply. And so the reason I get this objection is a lot of times people don't realize the difference between a coach and a consultant. A consultant is going to be an industry expert that's giving you feedback on that specific industry topic. And a coach is by design, from my point of view, industry agnostic. They're not in your industry, and that's a really positive thing because they're a neutral outside perspective who's not going to get in the weeds and want to give you advice. They're dealing with, and we're dealing with, clarity and communication and mindset and emotional intelligence and purpose and vision and direction. And, how do we create this cohesive team? It's an unbiased industry agnostic perspective, which is super powerful. So we ask the questions no one else is going to ask you. And the fact that we're not in the industry creates this, we can shoot straight with you. And it's not that we don't give advice and feedback. I'll give shortcuts if I really feel strongly about it. But more than anything, we're asking you to clarify and to look inside and within your team so you can solve these problems and commit and take action. Common objection. So another one is, this is going to take too much of my time. And reality is, I decided a long time ago, actually, that I want long-term relationships that have a long-term lifespan and I want to work with clients and teams for at least a year because I want the changes to stick. So we don't engage in situations. It's not that we don't do one-off situations. I mean, we do speaking And we do workshops, and you'll see me in the community, you'll see my team in the community, but those aren't the corporate contracts that we have. Those aren't the one-on-one coaching contracts. Those are separate. And those often lead to and can be just initial exposure to what we do in our services, but we want changes that stick. And so people want to run once they get engaged. And so when they're signing up, they're struggling with something. I mean, some reason they're not talking about stuff on their team. Some reason they're not addressing these core things in their life that are keeping them stuck. And there's some pain often that drives them to reaching out, or they've identified some pain in our discussions. So, and generally with a one-on-one client, we're meeting twice monthly, and there's check-ins, and there's action items, and people will say, that seems so overwhelming. Why do you want to do that? Well, as with any objection, I would encourage you with people to go deeper and ask them what's at stake. And that's my question for them is, what's at stake here? And what do you stand to lose by not solving this problem that's led to you reaching out? So really, if someone has that objection, it's too much time, well, I'll tell them that it took a while to create this behavioral issue, and it's going to take some time to change it, to make it stick. And that accountability and follow-up and cadence to the communication with your team together, with your coach, is what makes the changes stick. You're revisiting it. There's accountability to come back and to discuss. And really, what I have found is that it's going to save you a ton of time, because one of the first activities I work with leaders and teams is, how are you organizing your time? How are you structuring it to face the most important tasks every day and to deal with the issues that move the needle, meaning profit, meaning efficiency, systems? How do we deal with that? So when people come to explore a coach, they're often disorganized with their time. I mean, they want to get some systems in place, or part of their team is inefficient and they're not facing the stuff. So it's a process of clarity. The drama happens, we walk you through it, and it takes time. You want to run, but you've committed. It takes time. You've committed because you believe in the outcome. Our job is to get you to the goal, the outcome that you desire, that you started coaching with or have identified in the process. And maybe you get there quicker than you thought, and we have another outcome. But it's a process of change that actually sticks. So a number of clients, when they reach out initially, well, they become clients, but they may say things like, well, we want a business expert, like someone with an MBA, who's run multiple businesses, been a business coach for a long time. Well, I have been a business coach for a long time, but they don't want a therapy background person, none of that stuff. Like, you're a family therapist? You've been a clinician, dude? Okay. So it's skepticism around our qualifications. And of course, again, I would ask them questions like, well, what's the concern? And tell me more about that. And they're going to identify that, that just doesn't make sense. I've had people come in, and like the CEO or people that they have some exposure to me, and they'll say, well, how can you be qualified to help us? Look at this. We don't need a therapist. We need an attorney. We need a consultant. And so here's where I like to start with people is clarify the fact that there's a lot of experience here, but we're a coach, not a consultant. I'm a coach, not a consultant. And there's some real benefits to having a clinical background, because we go deeper in understanding a human behavior and team dynamics and personal transformation. Precisely, what might be missing if you have a consultant. I don't know. I think there's great consultants out there, I will just say too that we have people on our team that have run businesses. I mean, I've run a business since 2012, and in this specific industry. So, and just a side note, I may share with them possibly that I have a finance degree, and I went to University of Oregon. Go Ducks! We got our butts kicked the other night. I can't hate that, but it is something powerful when you realize that it's just somebody that is going to ask you the questions, the hard stuff, to get you thinking about stuff you weren't thinking. And it kind of connects to being industry agnostic as well. So that background I found, and when I started doing corporate work back in 2000, and heavily back more so in 2009, even before I started Decide Your Legacy through another agency, I was shocked that there were so many similarities between family therapy and then leadership team dynamics and the communication that's there. So and that's what led me into actually starting the business, because I saw so much crossover. So another objection is, and this sometimes is connected to the fact that there's a clinical family therapy background. It's like, I don't want to deal with my past. I don't want to engage in something that's going to make me deal with my past. And so again, they're identifying a fear right away, and they're saying that they're resistant to dealing with the emotional side of things. And that fear is what keeps people stuck, and it repeats itself when you don't face it. So we only deal with the past related to how it's impacting your current functioning and your future functioning. So you face the here and now today. And you want to normalize the fact, and I know it's normal to feel discomfort when you're growing. If you were going to start lifting weights and hadn't done so, it would create some soreness. I lifted with a buddy that I used to lift with yesterday morning. For the first time I'd actually lifted with Donovan in probably 15 years, I bet. And he's like, we want to go slow. And he met me at the Y, and we worked out and everything. And we kind of just doing light weights. And I lift fairly frequently, but it was fun just to connect with him. And I was thinking, he's really smart because he's taking it easy at first because he doesn't want to be so sore that he doesn't want to come back to the gym. Kind of good stuff. But facing your past builds resilience. It builds clarity. And the goal isn't therapy. It's equipping leaders to avoid repeating the same mistakes and to identify and have clarity that I'm doing the same thing triggered by past interactions with coworkers or past interactions professionally. It's triggered that I think the same thing's going to happen again. Let's face the fear and deal with it so we can move forward. And coaching's future oriented, but we got to face our triggers now. So another objection, and this one's kind of silly to me, but I can see why people actually have it, is they will say things like, you work with our competitors, or they perceive you work with their competitors. And now, so when I do speaking and when we're out in the community, people might interact with me and they may think, well, that's somebody that's a client of Decide Your Legacy. Fine. It may be, it may not be. But I don't share who our clients are. I mean, in fact, with the majority of our clients, we have an NDA if they want it. I'm happy to sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement, because we don't want to share, and we're not in the business of sharing trade secrets or even understanding them or even wanting to understand them. We're not in the business of sharing stories about other businesses. I mean, that's if they consent to sharing that and they do a testimonial, which there are some on our website, of their experience with Decide Your Legacy, that's fine. But they're giving their full consent to do that. And a lot of people don't care that they're associated with Decide Your Legacy as their business is. I mean, they're excited about it. They go to events and they communicate about it. So that's fine. But if you have that concern, fear not, because everything is strictly confidential. And so it's totally confidential, and we're not going to share anything. It's kept private. And our focus is on your transformation, reaching your goal, not industry secrets. Another objection is my team won't buy in. Like, they're not going to want this. They're not going to want to have a group coaching session and talk about stuff. They're not going to want to take up their time where they could be doing this and that and everything. I get that from people, and I even get it sometimes from people who have engaged in similar types of situations where they don't want to experience that. And it's probably potentially nothing wrong with consulting. I'm a fan of consulting. I work with consultants. I have a consultant. I mean, it's a great thing, but they don't understand coaching versus consulting at that point. And the buy-in that your team is lacking is going to be related to your enthusiasm and excitement as a leader. They take their cues from you. Everybody's watching you. So that's a deeper question. What's creating this lack of buy-in? Because maybe you're sold on coaching, but you're afraid that they're not going to be sold on coaching. And I'm going to call it development. I'm going to call it leadership team development, not therapy. And you're talking here, we're saying, and they're identifying the need for coaching in that situation, courageous conversations, accountability that moves the needle, getting results. So I've challenged them to set the tone. If you're passionate about it, your team's going to buy in and they're going to come on board. They're going to watch your behavior. They're going to love the clarity that they get and the direction that they get after and at the end of each coaching meeting. Which, by the way, with leadership teams, typically it's a monthly meeting with one of our coaches. And at the end of those meetings, I asked them to assess on a scale of 1 to 10 how helpful that meeting was. And I'm consistently amazed at the 8s and 9s and sometimes 10s, although that we get, because here's one reason why. Because they're getting action items. They're talking about the core problems. They're seeing that things can change. They're getting hope. You leave a meeting energized when you have hope that it's going to change things. Another objection is we got too many problems, too many crises going on. We can't take the time to slow down and talk about this stuff. We just got to react. It's like, that's a silly objection, because this is exactly what you need to deal with. This is exactly what would make a huge difference in your life if you started to get out of crisis mode and into productive action mode, facing the most important things, not being subject to urgency, addiction all the time. And I'm going to explore what is really going on there. And then I want to point out that, these problems are symptoms of they're a leadership problem, and you're not dealing with the root cause that's creating these symptoms that you're spending all your time on, that's creating your objection to engaging in this. And we're going to get below that to the surface level challenges so you can face those things so you're not going to be in urgency mode all the time. And if leaders get serious about what matters most, they realize that a process provides the clarity. This coaching process, it provides the clarity and the systems to make these changes. And, if they're unwilling to address that urgency addiction, then they may not be ready for coaching. And that's okay. That's okay. There's another objection that you get, the price. Okay, the price is too high. All right, good. So price and value is the issue here. If they see the value, then they recognize that they're going to get a return on investment that's significantly greater based on the problems that they're sharing. And I want to spend a little more time on this because one-on-one coaching with Decide Your Legacy, well, with me is $15,000 a year. And they may say, well, that's just out of line. I can't do that, whatever. And people pay monthly primarily. I mean, I used to charge up front, and that was a great thing because it shows commitment. And I have some clients that pay up front. They just want, I'm going to commit for a year and we're going to pay up front. And they know, the same client I can think of, he pays for, I believe, personal training on an annual basis as well, which is super cool. There's so many correlations between personal, like a physical training kind of thing. And that's what my challenge people with is your health. Health is huge. You get your health in order, it's going to impact every single stinking part of your life. Just like if you get your spiritual life in order, it's going to act every single piece of your life. You get your finances in order, every single piece. So we create systems to do that. Or they say it's too expensive to engage with my team in group coaching. I can't afford. And the average price, it's a lot of money. I get it. But it's the commitment and the return that you get from investing in the process. So I'll ask them, when they have that objection, what will not solving this problem cost you? Identify a number, because there's some pain there. How will solving it increase your revenue, increase your efficiency that's going to impact the bottom line? Well, if we can communicate as a team and work together, man, it's going to have a 20% increase in revenue over 3 years or over a year even. So what will solving this problem save you? Not just financially, but what will it save you relationally, emotionally, life expectancy? So what impact would it have on your life if you're still stuck here in 1 year or 3 years or 5 years? Count the cost. So when people get over the hump in coaching, when I have a prospect and I know they're a good client, so I want to work with them, and they seem to really want to work with us, but they can't make the decision. One of the big drivers of that is if they identify the cost of not changing, and they can see that I can't stay stuck here. If I'm here in a year, it's going to be really bad, and I don't want to change. And what I've done is not working. And I can tell you why. It's not working because they're not taking action and they don't have the accountability to follow through. When people invest money, there's accountability in that. It's brave. I'm getting ready to spend some money today in coaching. So 15 grand, same amount of money I spend on my own coach. I'm getting ready to cut the check for that. So the first quarter, and it's something called Strategic Coach, which is a coaching group thing that meets, and it's just 4 meetings a year, but it's a community and I'm really passionate about it. Love it. Books I've read from Dan Sullivan have been extremely helpful. So I'm excited about it. Good stuff. And then I'm going to be committed to it. I got to travel to do that and meet some great people, but I'm going to have skin in the game. That's a great thing. So how do I answer that question, the cost? So first of all, it's an investment that produces long-term dividends, not only monetarily, but long-term behavioral change when you commit and invest and you take the actions. And you're gaining things that are invaluable, like clarity and confidence that's going to impact every part of your life, a healthier team, stronger relationships. You're reducing turnover. Oh my gosh. Improved culture. Powerful stuff, improved profitability, because when you do things more efficiently, you add more value through the changes you're making, then the marketplace rewards you with increased profitability. It's a result of running a really successful business. It's a reward. And it's really the last reward you get, actually. So when I think of making money and everything, you get competency, you get confidence, you get connections, you get a lot of other things before you make the money. You get community, all of that. So you got to count the cost. You got to see the value. The value is long-term. And we're in the business at Decide Your Legacy of long-term change, not quick fixes. Facing your issues is powerful. Getting to the other side so you can really change. And then sometimes from potential clients, I have this thing when they come back to me after they've really thought through their objections, they say, you know what, the problem's not that big of a deal. That's it. I get that. It's really not that big of a deal, and I can keep going and doing what I'm doing. And so then I ask them, what led you to reach out anyway? Okay, so what's changed about that? And what I get with that question 90% of the time is they get to revisit how much pain they had experienced and didn't want to experience it again. And maybe it has resolved itself, but we're not really in this discussion, and I'm not in a discussion with somebody, or my team's not in a discussion with somebody, if we don't think to get to this point that there's some pain there that we could be a solution for. And we're not the only game in the world. Get it. That's it. So, but we want to be a solution. So my answer to that is, well, something got you here, and it goes back, do you want to stay here? Or what would it impact? How would it impact things if this problem went away that you say is no big of a deal? And then they have to do some soul searching and really answer the question. So, common objections. And I just want to say, if you found this content helpful and you're just kind of interested in Decide Your Legacy and our coaching services, I want to give you a chance to get more exposure. And it's by going through a course that I put together. It's called Shatterproof Yourself Light. And you can get it on the app or go to the course and watch it you can watch the video. There's a worksheet and a video to watch. And I just go over 7 steps briefly to a giant leap in your confidence. And it's going to give you a little bit of an idea of our style and some of the things we address. This is supplemental to what happens in coaching. I mean, coaching is about you. We're talking about your issues, your team's issues, giving you tools and everything, but it gives you some exposure. So check that out. Hit the link to Shatterproof Yourself Light. And I want to share briefly just a couple stories of clients who were hesitant to start and then the changes that they actually made. So one, I'm going to disguise their names and their businesses and everything, but I just think of some powerful situations. So it can be a long process before they decide. Sometimes it's a lot shorter now than it used to be, but I can think back, 5 years, a discussion I had with a business owner, small team, about 25 employees. And this guy had been coping with the stress of managing his team through alcohol. He was drinking and he was isolating from his family. He had some difficult situations going on. I mean, marriage challenges, some health challenges, getting a little bit older, although I still see his age as young, and hesitant to start, but it got to the point where he was counting the cost and he committed. He committed to coaching, and that was back in the day when I did 6 months contracts. It ended up being about a 2-year contract, but ended up starting, and he committed to that. And through the process, very hesitant to bring his team, get him involved, but he was sold that I got to do something else. And really just checking in, because I stay in touch with people. I mean, the results have been incredible. I mean, a team that's cohesive and talks and deals with problems, a culture that is keeping and retaining employees, even hiring a new key leader that wouldn't have been attracted to this company if it was back when he started coaching. I can just tell you that, but a really positive, excellent leader that wanted to come and work for him because saw the changes in the organization externally. I mean, from a distance, had been watching, and it was made it very attractive to go work there. People that want to not complain and actually take more action. So, and then a happier person who has peace in his life. I mean, very exciting stuff. So in another situation, a leader who had gone through a business transition, so it transitioned to a second generation. We work with a lot of second generation and third generation businesses, and having a big hesitancy. I mean, the objections were really that it's expensive. That was one, but that my team's not going to buy in. They're not going to buy in. It's not going to work for them. And through one-on-one coaching with the leader and actually starting to work with the team, this leader realized that his excitement level as he got better was spreading to his team. And as he got excited about the potential of coaching and impacting his team, they started to get excited about it as well. And really great hesitancy in those first initial coaching meetings, team coaching meetings. But they started to have this, they were a siloed organization. And then I remember the breakthrough when they all signed an agreement saying they're going to support each other outside of this room. And they're going to support each other even if they don't agree with the decision. And they're going to make decisions and help each other's departments, regardless of how it benefits their specific unit. They're going to see that team coming together as the most impactful and important unit in the company's success. And the energy that you get from that, I mean, it just gives me so much excitement to tell the story and to get and to help and to grow the business of Decide Your Legacy because of seeing these things. So retention of employees, tremendous. Growth of the business, tremendous. And dealing with issues they hadn't faced in a decade so they could actually solve the problems and move forward, tremendous. So I'm excited for you as well. So there's some of the objections that you commonly hear, and I know there's more, and I know I could share more as well, but I just want to go ahead and close this up and just challenge you that instead of asking, do I need coaching, instead ask, what's the cost of continuing exactly as I am? What's it really costing me? So what insight have you gained today? I want you to commit to taking action based on some insight that you gained today. What are you going to apply? Decide, act, and then repeat. And there's no positive change unless you decide to change. 80% of transformational change is committing and acting, doing something. 20% is insight. You gained insight today. Now the challenge for you is to take some action. Take action. Follow me. Leave a rating and review, Apple or Spotify. Check it out. Follow us, decide your legacy wherever you find content, and to decide that whole word definition, eliminating other options. You're like, I'm going to give this a shot. I'm looking at all these options. I want to do this. Your legacy is the impact your life has on other people. There's no positive change until you decide to change. Decide today because your legacy depends on it. I'm going to close today the way I always do. Make it your mission to live the life today that you want to be remembered for 10 years after you're gone. You decide your legacy, nobody else. I appreciate you greatly, and I'll see you next time.